Hi, everybody, and Happy New Year. John, we haven't done one of these for a while.
We have not. No.
Sort of.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Thank
sort of
you.
car talk of security talk.
Car talk of security talk. I love it.
I'm not sure if I'm click or clock, but we'll find out as we get in.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Drive like my brother.
Don't love my wicked Boston accent. Hey, it being the beginning of 2020, and we've already done our predictions. I like to think more of those sort of things on the radar screen, but we've already published that. But again, it being the beginning of the year, what's one thread you're going to pull on the most?
Well, I've got a lot of them, but I'll just, off the top of my head, automation. So we've talked about automation, and we've progressed there, but I think we're about to hit a real curve in our progression there. I'm seeing best practices. I'm seeing people hiring automation managers for security.
Oh, interesting.
And then the tools are starting to mature too. So I think it's a big trend for 2020.
I feel like in automation there's a level of comfort, certainly in IT, but certainly cybersecurity, that the team has to have to sort of let control go to a third-party product that actually is going to take action on their behalf.
Well, I think it's the process. So you have to make sure that the process is very sound, and then if you know all the steps, then the tools can help you automate, but it's really the processes that we haven't really formalized in the past.
Yeah, and obviously you have an audit trail to make sure you can check some balances to make sure what you intended to happen did in fact happen.
Yeah, you need that for auditing purposes, for compliance purposes. But enough about me, Doug. What do you see in 2020?
Well, like you, I mean, there's a lot to think about and talk about over the course of the year, but an area I'm really interested in, I think is going to be front and center, is around how the adoption of serverless functions, which is really coming on at least as strong as containers, probably faster really. Our research is showing that those organizations that are already consuming containers are far down the path on consuming serverless functions sort of as part of their cloud-native application architecture. I think that's a catalyst around just broader use of APIs and API security. And so sort of first things first is really understanding how that impacts your threat model. Right, so what are the API vulnerabilities? So I think cyber pros and certainly developers need to understand, okay, now we're very increased use of serverless. I don't have somewhere where I can naturally sort of plug something in, right? I certainly can't do it on the network. I can't plug in an agent. But by definition, the serverless function is running on a server the CSP is operating. So you really have to understand your threat model. And it's full life cycle, right? You want to have some controls at dev time. So you're doing an inventory of your APIs, but also some runtime controls. And that's where we're seeing an increase in technologies like runtime application self-protection.
It's another example of the developers kind of going their own way.
Yep.
For the good of their development cycles, for the good of business logic and functionality, and leaving the security people behind. And we need to bridge that gap.
Totally. Hey, early 2020 also means RSA conference around the corner.
Yeah, RSA 2020. It's probably my 15th, 16th time at RSA.
Wow. I'm around a dozen, maybe 10. So
lightweight.
I know. Hey, so one of the interesting things about RSA this year in terms of the content for the conference is that the RSA conference committee, those folks who are looking at the speaking abstracts, shared the top 10 speaking abstract themes. In fact, the number one speaking abstract theme for RSA Conference 2020 was the human element. And also included in the list was professional and workforce development.
Okay.
So that makes me think about the work you do with ISSA.
Yeah.
On the life and times of the cybersecurity pro. What are some of the things you think we're going to hear on speaking sessions at RSA that are related to those two topics?
Well, first of all, I'm happy that we're moving in this direction. As Bruce Schneier says, security is a process, not a product, which I totally agree with. I understand that. Professional development, we touched on this. I mean, the world is moving very quickly. There's a expanding attack surface. We're doing things like serverless application development. And so security people have to keep up. But what the ISSA research has shown us year after year is they don't have time to keep up. They're not doing the training that they need to keep up. And that's a gap that every organization should be looking at and figuring out how to bridge, because if you're not keeping up, you're ignoring certain risks or minimizing certain risks, you're going to suffer if you do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons I I continue to sort of beat the secure DevOps or DevSecOps drum because it gives us, security at scale. If you can integrate with your CI/CD pipeline and how you automate, you fundamentally get scale. You can automate your security processes at every step of the application lifecycle. Still early days there. We're seeing organizations that are truly starting to embrace and adopt DevSecOps, which starts with people. It's all about a cultural shift.
And it's about automation. We don't have the bodies to keep up with the workload. So there's only a few things we can do, and one of them is automation.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for this latest episode of Car Talk Cybersecurity Talk. We look forward to next time.
Don't compute like my brother.